Hey guys, welcome to an American history lecture that's geared for the United States history exam in Regents in New York State, but certainly applicable to other students who are taking American history. And we're going to spend the next 10 minutes talking about Manifest Destiny. And as much as the vocabulary we can get through and the concept we give you enough, hopefully to write about and definitely to fill in the right bubbles. So first of all, what is Manifest Destiny? In class, this is how I would do it. I would kind of do the sign of the cross, and then I would take something off your desk and I would run away. And the concept here is, and I don't want to be negative on the United States, I'm just going to kind of explain it the best that I can conceptually, is that America kind of has a superiority complex. The sign of the cross represents really our Christianhood. The idea that, and the federal government, the founders of the government, we don't want to get into this, but not all of them are strict Christians. Some of them are, some of them are. Jefferson rewrote the Bible, took out all the miracles. A lot of people don't know that. So it's not really that the leaders of the country are very, very religious, but certainly the people of the country, especially in the North, are religious folk, and later in the South. But nevertheless, the concept is kind of that we see ourselves as a blessed people. That we're different than the Indians or the Africans or, even the Slavs or the Muslims or the Arabs or whoever. That we're kind of the chosen ones. And the language is even used in modern day. When Ronald Reagan was elected, he gave an inauguration speech where he said America was the shining hill, shining city on the hill. Kind of like we're the special country. And I'm not saying that we're not, or that we are, or anything like that. I'm just trying to explain Manifest Destiny. And this gives us permission, or to always move forward, because we're bringing with us our ideals and our democracy and our specialness. And Manifest Destiny usually involves kind of moving westward. And as we take different sections of the country through different methods, annexation and breaking Indian treaties and building railroads and fighting wars, we are going to eventually get to the Pacific Ocean, sea to shining sea. Some saw pole to shining pole. And eventually it'll be space and the final frontier. And now we have a remote control car on Mars. But nevertheless, let's go through your major vocabulary for Manifest Destiny. I'm just going to cheat a little bit. Lewis and Clark, usually not on the test. That's an 8th grade concept, but I'm not doing Lewis and Clark. For some reason, I refuse. Louisiana Purchase. Yeah, definitely Jefferson's Louisiana Purchase, which we previously went over. The idea that this kind of dropping the baby scenario of Jefferson leads to doubling the size of the United States. I skipped some stuff. I'm going to go backwards in a second. The Mississippi River in the middle of the country. Early on, before this, under the Articles, there is some vocab I want to throw at you really quickly. Under the Articles, which sucked because the states were too powerful and the feds were too weak, they didn't really pass many laws. You needed a supermajority to pass laws, and they didn't do that. But they passed one law related to Manifest Destiny, and I call it the "uh-oh, mama can get pregnant" law. And this law is called the Northwest Ordinance of 1787. And in this law, it basically set up a process for the United States to take territories into statehood into the United States. It gave permission for America to get pregnant with babies of states. So this is Manifest Destiny in a sense. Northwest Ordinance is kind of the Ohio River Valley. We're moving on west. Moving on west. Yeah, so that concept's on there. I'm thinking in my head really quick. If I'm skipping something else, I'm going to move on. Louisiana Purchase definitely is going to be on there. And really I'm going to jump ahead a little bit. Certainly the Mexican War. The Mexican War in the late 1840s is an example of Manifest Destiny. We're not going to get too much into it, but by fighting Mexico, we were able to gain Nevada and Arizona and Texas, and parts of California and a big chunk of the Southwest. So through war, we absolutely Manifest Destiny. The Annexation of Texas, which occurred previous to the Mexican War, when people went to Texas and became Mexicans living in Texas, later to declare independence from Mexico. The state of Texas was previously the country of Texas, the Lone Star country, and then the United States will welcome her into the family through annexation, kind of a silent wink wink, nod nod, we'll be part of your country. The Oregon Territory, British treaty in the northwest of the United States, the California Gold Rush of 1849. These are all kind of singular vocabulary words that lead to expansionism and different areas of the country being gobbled up. And eventually we will get there. One of the other concepts I wanted to go over really quickly in this lecture is the concept of economic nationalism in Native Americans. Really, the federal government doing things to push people forward doesn't really occur powerfully until the Civil War era. Different states and different projects happen. The Erie Canal, that's an example of an earlier transportation system that was built inside a state to economic nationalism, to create a bigger economy. But it was really the Republican Party. We see the Republican Party today as a pro-business party. That's one thing that was true back then. When Abraham Lincoln ran as a Republican, he did talk about slavery in a sense. He wasn't an abolitionist by any means, but he certainly had that issue about free soil. But even more important to him, I think, was the idea that the federal government should use its power to create a greater economy. Not by giving poor people money, that's a Keynesian economics idea, but rather by kind of pumping money into big business. For instance, the Transcontinental Railroad, all of that land used to build the railroad that connects the East with the West Coast was basically given to these humongous kind of steel companies and these new railroad companies because this subsidy, this kind of free handout, created a larger economy. It created jobs and it created trade and it created transport systems and all kinds of towns and villages, and it was good for the economy. Tariffs are seen in this light. They like tariffs because tariffs raise taxes on imports, therefore kind of protecting American manufacturers. The Republicans are pro-American business. We're not doing free trade yet, but definitely that's part of this idea. The Homestead Act of 1862 is one of the first laws that Lincoln got passed. And this Homestead Act is designed to get settlers to go out there, to complete Manifest Destiny. And if there's Native Americans in the way, we'll deal with that as we go on. In Native American history, which there should be a separate course, I believe, that's total attention given to it, the only things on the test, and this is kind of sad but true, is really the Indian Removal Act of 1832, when Congress passed a law which removed basically all the Indians to the other side of the Mississippi. You know, actually the Supreme Court ruled this unconstitutional, Worcester versus Georgia, but Andrew Jackson, my favorite Indian killer, refused to enforce that law, and he let the Indian Removal Act happen anyway. That's part of Manifest Destiny because we're taking them out of the picture. Many of them lived in communities and had started to become Americanized in a sense. Others did not. Gotta do this really quick. What else? Trail of Tears, that's not really on the test, but that's the march westward of Indians through the Indian Removal Act. But later on down the road, we have the Dawes Act. That's big on the test. The Dawes Act is really the end of the independence of American Indians. Tribes are all over the country. And what the Dawes Act does is basically put all Indians in separate reservations. And the idea on the test, first of all, reservations will usually get the answer, but you have to know the goal of the reservation. The reservation is not to have Indians live like Indians, but rather to kind of assimilate them into American culture, to make them speak English, to make them farm like us, to make them live like us, to make them worship like us. And that didn't exactly work out. Reservations are still here with us. They have a certain amount of sovereignty. We have the Senecas out here in western New York, and they have tax issues with cigarettes and different things like that. But really, I think Native Americans were hurting on the reservation. High alcoholism rates, underfunded schools, kind of not a great situation. But as I look at my time, I only have a minute left, and I'm going to cheat a little bit and just kind of look through some notes. I don't do this too often, guys. But one of the other concepts really quick is that Manifest Destiny never really ends. It's never over. It's like even after we are in California, imperialism in a sense, remember we're hungry, belly rubbing for raw materials, that's in a sense an extension of Manifest Destiny. The Turner Frontier thesis pops up on the test rarely. It's that concept that we have a want for more and we bring with us civilizedness and stuff like that. Kind of the idea of white man's burden and not social Darwinism. Boy, I'm tired, guys. We're going to end this, all right? Definitely make sure that you study, watch a lot of these lectures, and I don't know what else to say, but good luck.